Welcome everyone to part 2 of today's virtual conference, The State of Roma Human Rights in the Balkans. The aim of this conference is to review the contemporary state of human rights and the challenges that confront Roma people in the 6 Western Balkan countries seeking European Union membership. My name is Dr. Laura Cohen, and I'm the Executive Director of the Harriet and Kenneth Kupferberg Holocaust Center at Queensborough Community College at the City University of New York. Our mission is to use the lessons of the Holocaust to educate current and future generations about the ramifications of prejudice, racism, and stereotyping. It's our great honor to co-sponsor this conference today with the Harriman Institute and the Roma People's Project at Columbia University. During today's panel, we'll hear from 4 esteemed colleagues to discuss a Roma educational project in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They include Velma Saric, founder and president of the Post-Conflict Research Center in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Dalibor Tanić, a Roma activist and editor-in-chief at UDAR, a Roma regional multimedia portal, Milos Bogacevic, head of human rights at the OSCE mission to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Mirko Pincelli, a photographer and filmmaker documenting the lives of Roma communities in Bosnia. Each of our guests today will present for approximately 10 to 15 minutes, followed by a discussion which I'll moderate. So please be sure to submit your questions via the Q&A feature on your screen. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Velma Saric. She's a dear colleague and fearless activist whose work on raising awareness of Roma people in Bosnia and Herzegovina was one of the key inspirations for today's conference. Thank you so much, Velma. Velma, as I mentioned, is the founder and president of the Post-Conflict Research Center, PCRC, and founder and editor-in-chief of Balkan Discourse. Velma and PCRC were awarded the Intercultural Innovation Award by the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations and BMW Group. Most recently, PCRC and Velma have been chosen as peace ambassadors by the Center for Peace Studies in Sri Lanka. And as a researcher and producer, she has worked on numerous publications and films about the 1992 to 1995 Bosnian War, including Ospomene 677, Ordinary Heroes, In the Land of Blood and Honey by Angela Jolie, and I Came to Testify, and War and Redefined from the PBS series Women, War and Peace. Velma, it's my great pleasure to turn things over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lori. Thank you so much for a beautiful introduction. I'm always embarrassed I did. So thank you so much. Second thing, today is my birthday. I feel quite happy that we can spend it together. So we will be speaking about one of our multimedia educational projects on the margins. Research Center developed, implemented primarily a platform with communities. We know I do have some slides, so maybe we can put them on the screen, but I'm going to say just briefly about Post-Conflict Research Center and about our mission. We exist now for almost 10 years. We have been a peace-building organization based in Sarajevo, but we mostly work on a grassroots level. Our expertise is coming from, I would say, using innovative approaches to peace building as the main tool, and also through post-conflict research, transitional justice, and youth education. We are trying to restore the culture of peace and preventing future conflict in the area of Balkan, especially in Bosnia. So on the margin, our project on the margins is focusing, as I mentioned, on the Roma communities, and it's supposed to provide a platform or space which Roma people from Bosnia can share their difficult life stories and everyday challenges they were facing in our society. I would say that this project is quite unique because it was created to challenge these negative perceptions and stereotypes that exist in our society, not just in Bosnia, all around the Western Balkans, but of course in Europe. We were listening in the previous panels, some of these data about the hardship which Roma people are facing today. This project is featuring personal stories and personal testimonies, and they are presented that they can challenge these widespread stereotypes and misinterpretation about Roma communities, but it also encourage the audience to think about on different, unique, I would say, way about this diverse community. If we can switch to another slide, Lori, it would be great, because we can kind of feature maybe some of these pictures and photography from the project. Thank you. I do believe that my colleagues will be speaking more about the conditions of Roma population in Bosnia, and they will probably come in with some. But I'm going to mention how this project actually is developed and implemented. We're using a couple of slides that they on the margins, a set or manual, which is developed by Council of Europe. It's a handbook combating discrimination against Roma, and that is kind of like a manual featuring stereotypes existing about Roma communities. But we realized that there is no any pictures being involved. They just had illustrations. So literally, this manual, I would say, was for us inspiration to develop photo project. We thought it would be a small photo project, being much more larger and consists several components. By own stereotypes. So, for example, there are always travelers, that they never stay in one place. So, true story of 82 years old. She's from one small village in central Bosnia. We were able to break this stereotype and show that she was always living in the same village, and that literally this is just stereotype existing. And her story was directly helping us to show that this is literally not true. So what we did. Pincelli, and he will be speaking about, but in the last 10 years, PCRC was really following and trying to develop a project, multimedia project related to Roma population. And we had large network of our contacts through all around Bosnia. So through our research, we realized that this will not be a small photo project we thought in the beginning, that we need to really do something much more serious, and that we need to combine multimedia project. So we were curating exhibition. Is Roma photographer Albin Fulovic, who is from central Bosnia, from Vis. Brad Hobbs, Italian photographer. Photographers, we were traveling all around Bosnia and trying to find a stereotype and find a story which will be a counter narrative to those stereotypes existing. The entire project is outdoor traveling. Thanks to our project OSCE mission and traveling, Miloš will probably say to how many different cities. But we have been able to take this outdoor exhibition all around Bosnia. The second portion is photo book. Photo book is incorporating the traveling exhibition, and it's also serving as they can understand much more single stereotype and create a counter narrative. Component of this project have been partners, educators for peace from DC and German. We literally developed the module as a part of project which Holocaust, where we are featuring our on the margin projects inside of the chapter which is speaking about the human rights and democracy. So this module will be tested through the classrooms all around and creating this curriculum. So the results and how young people are reacting. And the fourth component, which will be my colleague Mirko Pincelli will be a screening our short trailer, and the fourth component is actually documentary, which we would like to do, and it will then be the additional portion of the project, which will consist then 4 different components. What is great to mention here is that we really had a good feedback from professors and teachers from high schools and universities all around Bosnia, and they really saw on the margins and our photo book and photo exhibition which Roma population, which is the largest population, and my colleagues will probably be featuring some data, but it's the largest population, minority population in BiH. So what we did realize is that schools and high schools and universities are really willing to incorporate the project and all components we develop. This exhibition is also created indoor, so it's possible not just to exhibit on a public spheres or big spaces. It can be exhibited in classrooms and smaller places and be accessible for larger populations. So hopefully our next phase will be this documentary, which then will add this missing component. On the Margins project would never be possible without our partners OSCE mission in BiH. But also I want to mention Rockefeller Brothers Fund, who supported majority of work and field work and photography work we did. Also our core donors are National Endowment for Democracy and Seated Housing Trust, because without them, this work will never be possible, because they do understand that all our interventions and educational projects and initiatives and activities are the part of larger strategy, which is in this case connected closely to human rights and democracy, but also the work we do in post-conflict and post-conflict society, in post-conflict Bosnia and the region of Western Balkans. I don't know how we are with the time.
You're doing good.
And just show some pictures. Yeah, this the mix of we have. Literally, yeah, I'm featuring some which we didn't show in exhibition, but whoever is interested to event around Roma, they can reach us and we would be happy. This is another stereotype exists. It was really sad to see that, you know, young really also affected. This is Ervin, and one of the stereotypes, Roma kids are always, or that they are not non-clean, stuff like that. So through his story, Ervin's story, and Ervin is really, really inspirational young man, we were able to kind of break this stereotype and you know, show this beautiful example of young man who is a great pupil in a school, who is dreaming that one day will be a football player. And it's really, you know, when I started to do this project, I did realize that Roma people are really marginalized and that they are really living in very difficult conditions. But to be honest, when I'm spending more time in their communities, I have to share something what was really like personally heavy for me, that every single time when I would come home, I would be so grateful to have like clean water, running water and electricity and dry place to lay down, because I did realize that, you know, it's not on the margin. It's like their life and their like living conditions are so much on their margins that it cannot be even still in Tuzla during the one conference which OSCE organized, but his mom is Roma activist, so he was coming to following. Yes, one of the Roma people don't have a like cherish language and culture, so we are featuring story from their like famous author and writer and poet who actually did dictionary of Romani language, and through his story we are also able to create and combating this narrative existing really sad for me to know the type there, which is that Roma people kidnapping kids, and you know we are not even aware how much and on which level the Roma people are victims of human trafficking, and that most of these cases are actually related on on trafficking their own kids and not kids from other ethnic or religious groups. But this stereotype is really widespread and exists all around Bosnia. So for me, that was also difficult to understand. But yeah, our film, our trailer about trafficking people better and visualize better what I'm talking about. Yeah, let's go to the next slide, Lori. Yeah, so also one of the stereotypes related to Roma women is that they are like literally don't want to work, and that they are like mostly like exotic dancers, and that they are seducing men and stuff. So through who created her own business, literally we were featured to Roma women. See the next one. Yeah, this is Bahra. This is also in central Bosnia. So through the project, we had the opportunity to collaborate with many different Roma communities and organizations. But one of the stereotypes, of course, is that, you know, like young Roma men and youth are usually like drug addicts or drug dealers. So through this case of Aldina and her son Marko, we are literally featuring the story of, you know, successful young Roma activists who are working and who are definitely trying to change this perspective. So Aldina was, she was also serving as one of our Roma coordinator, and she was really helping us to have a deep insight and go into community and understand that this is also one of the prejudices which exists, and in reality is completely different. So yeah, I mean, these pictures photographies we are looking are just like partial part of our exhibition. The exhibition is featuring kind of like unique examples, and we are keeping our exhibition and bring to museums or their classrooms. Everything was developed related to this Roma educational project is available. Whoever is more interested can reach us. I think some of my colleagues will be sharing a couple of links. And we are extremely, grateful and proud on this International Roma Day to have being part and being able to do this project. A couple of years ago when I was doing this project, I didn't even realize that it will ended up of being like a great educational initiative. We just thought different, but yeah, I'm grateful that we at least have an option that we can gather and speak about Roma people and feature, you know, the work we did. So I will stop here, Laurie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Velma. It's really powerful, the work that you do, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. I want to keep things moving. So our next speaker is Dalibor Tanić. Dalibor is an activist and investigative journalist covering the media about Roma rights and human rights for over a decade, including for Točač and Discriminacija.be. In 2014, he received an award from the European Union for investigative journalism, both in and about Bosnia and Herzegovina. Dalibor is editor-in-chief of the regional Roma multimedia portal UDAR, and most recently in 2020, he founded the organization, the Association of Young Roma, also known as Axion, and is an investigative journalist, including for the online magazine Journal. Dalibor, let's turn things over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for opportunity to speak today. And today I would like to speak like an activist and like a journalist and like an activist. And thanks to Velma, and she gave us one how to say intro for today's conference, because she talked about one of very important project in Bosnia and Herzegovina about photo book. And I'm so proud that portal UDAR, and I'm like a journalist and like a editor-in-chief of UDAR, that we was a part of that project, like a outreach part. Today, it's important to talk about not just about problems in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Roma community. Today, it's important to talk and about positive things, because we talk about problems 364 days during the year. It's very important to talk about success, and one of that success is photo book on the margin. So, because if we constantly emphasize those negative things and try to fix them during our lives, then we will become, I don't know, average. So instead, there is enough. I really believe that there is enough potential in Bosnia, in Herzegovina, to become a truly exceptional. We have the great, for example, we have great Selma Selman. She is famous. She is an artist. She is how to say, a symbol of struggle for Roma women rights. And then we have Hedina Sierčić Tahirović, for example. She's a writer, she's a translator, she's a PhD, and in this moment she is in Germany on some other activists. But we have enough after so many years. We have so many potential today, and there is so many more young people who waiting for an opportunity. And on other side, you all know that Bosnia and Herzegovina is very specific country, and almost everyone misses the opportunity, and that is the most important thing that missing at this time. Chance to be given to people to prove and show that they are available, and that is very important for young Roma. So from my perspective, it doesn't matter in this moment, for example, who represents Roma community and Roma. It's much more important how they will represent this community. In this moment, nobody represents us. Nobody represents Roma community in Bosnia and Herzegovina. As you know, the constituent peoples in Bosnia and Herzegovina have their representatives, but Roma do not have their representatives, and it's very questionable how someone represent this community today, Roma community today. And I'm not talking today about NGOs, about NGOs representatives and organization. I'm talking about political representatives who are in place where important decisions are made. Okay, so it is important that we have our representatives, and I would be happy if the people in the parliaments represented the interests of all of us, and not just one part of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So I'm a journalist and activist, but like a journalist, it's maybe better, and maybe it's the best way to explain through my experience what is actually happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina with Roma community. So the UDAR, our portal UDAR, on Bosnia and on Bosnian language, UDAR, it's mean a strike, you know. but on Roma language with a little bit different accent, it's mean door, you know. And with our UDAR, with our portal, we would like to open the door between Roma community and between mainstream community in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So the UDAR made it as a direct response to the totally exclusion of Roma, not Roma community, Roma issue from the mainstream media. And on the especially I'm talking about public services now. So on the other hand, when there is some reporting on Roma, it's usually colored by prejudice. So because of that, we did some research a couple of years ago, and we took a time, this time, April and May, because during these months, in April and May, there is a very important days for Roma. Today it's World Roma Day, and on May will be St. George, and it's very important day for Roma. So, and what we got as a result in the days when important days for Roma are celebrated in April, today, April 8th, and May 6th, media was full of coverage of Roma articles, and after that, and meanwhile, there is almost nothing. So the same thing is when there are, for example, elections. So only during the election campaign, pre-election campaign, some people from political parties visit Roma settlements and make some promises, and they forgot them again for the next elections. You know, what makes me happy is in this moment is that because in previous elections that held in November 2020, 6 Roma were elected, and between them, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Between them and one woman in Brčko district, but that is a local level in local assemblies, you know. So the thing, the thing is simple. Roma and other national minorities in Bosnia, in Herzegovina will have as good life as the government allows. So nothing can happen here if the government does not become our real partner. So we took the first step, you know. We have shown that we are good and students and good journalists and good doctors and artists and whatever you want. So, and if nothing else, in these 50 years, the Roma movement, has built one stable generation of educated people, you know. The next step must be taken by government in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So this is a struggle in which everyone must participate. So the Roma community cannot exist if there are only one player in this game. The government must understand that the Roma are part of Bosnia and Herzegovina identity, that they are a citizen of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that Roma is first of all a citizen of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So maybe today it's a moment, and this conference is a moment when, it should be reminded once again that in the whole this process of emancipation of Roma community all around the world, not just in Bosnia and Herzegovina, that the governments of the countries in which the Roma live must play the most important role. Governments it's need to take most important role. So there must be a will, pure will, not to be a result of outside pressure, you know. So after 50 years, a new generation of Roma has arrived, and we are here today, and we are ready to carry to the end the burden that 50 years ago was carried by the some people in London, 1971. And I would like with this to make some, how to say, some context, and we will talk later during the about some maybe specific things. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dalibor, and apologies. I meant to turn off the camera there. There was some ambient noise. I realized, oh no. So my apologies. And you've brought up some really powerful points that we will talk about absolutely during the discussion. I wanted to turn things over to our next speaker, Milos Bogacevic, who's a human rights lawyer with a specialist degree in human rights law from the University of Novi Sad in Serbia and a master's in human rights from University College London. He's a strong advocate for equality and non-discrimination, and his professional interests include freedom of expression, fair trial rights, and transitional justice. His professional experience includes the Institution of Human Rights Ombudsman, the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, Amnesty International, the European Court of Human Rights, and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, mission to Bosnia and Herzegovina, where he's currently serving as head of human rights. Miloš.
Thank you. Hope you can hear me. I'd like to thank the conference organizers, first for organizing this event on such an important date and on such an important topic, and for giving me the opportunity to share some views on the state of Roma human rights in the Balkans and in Bosnia and Herzegovina in particular. I believe I will not say anything new by saying that the state of human rights for this ethnic group is far from satisfactory. This is regularly confirmed by reports and research by credible international human rights organizations. I will try to illuminate a couple of reasons why this is the case and propose some ways forward in order to overcome this, to put it mildly, unsatisfactory situation. The first reason I see for the Roma exclusion from public life in Bosnia and Herzegovina is the country's constitutional and legal framework that reflects the power-sharing agreement of the three largest ethnicities in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bosniak, Serbs, and Croats. Namely, when the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina ended, these three ethnic groups who all participated in the war signed a peace treaty brokered by the then US administration, the Dayton Peace Agreement. According to this peace treaty, which also serves as the Bosnian constitution, the three largest ethnic groups, Bosniak, Serbs, and Croats, are to share all political power in the country. In practice, this means that all public offices are split between these ethnic groups, and each of these ethnic groups has a political party which represents or claims to represent their interests. More concretely, if you're a Bosnian, Croat, or a Serb, you're most likely to vote for a Bosnian, Croat, or a Serb political party, rather than a liberal, conservative, socialist, and traditional left or right divide. Of course, there are always some exceptions. And in order to hold office, including the highest office, like the presidency, you have to be the member of one of these three ethnic groups. According to the constitution, Bosnia does not have a president, but presidency of three persons. One is a Bosniak, one Serb, and one Croat. So if you're a Roma or a Jew or some other ethnic group, you cannot even run for office. And that should sink. In 21st century Europe, a Roma or a Jew cannot run for office. The European Court of Human Rights, Europe's most important human rights court, found this practice to be discriminatory and ordered Bosnia and Herzegovina to change this practice. But more than 10 years after the judgment had been delivered, it remains unenforced. Now, a counter-argument to this could be that too much emphasis is placed on the legal framework. Being a lawyer, I stand guilty as charged. After all, in all other countries in the Balkans, there is no formal impediment for Roma to run for office, but the situation is hardly any better. However, there are two reasons why this is still an important consideration, in my view. First, the message descends to not only Roma, but to all other ethnic minorities is important. It's important to show that a person from a community that is a numeric minority can hold the highest office in the country. Second, this power sharing agreement with ethnicity-based political parties also leads to power sharing in all other aspects of life. Who gets to be a mayor or local assembly speaker or municipal officer is also determined by this power sharing agreement. And in all levels of governance, Roma are excluded. Another important and negative consequence is that even though Roma represent the most numerous ethnic minority in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the number of Roma is severely underreported in official census. This also stems from the said power sharing system. If a Bosniak or Serb or Croat political party gets more power according to the number of Bosniak Serbs and Croats in a certain part of the country, they will have all the incentive to inflate these numbers. And since they are the one who also do the counting, perhaps they would also be inclined to register a Roma family in an official census as Bosniak Serb or Croat. They will also likely be inclined to persuade, bribe, or in other ways encourage Roma to register as some other ethnicity. And finally, if political and economic power, including jobs, aid, entitlements, is reserved for privileged ethnicities, Roma themselves may decide that it is in their best interest to declare themselves as something else rather than Roma. It is therefore the case in Bosnia and Herzegovina that the estimated real number of Roma living in this country is several times higher than the officially reported. Another important consideration that we're also talking about today is the stereotypes and discriminatory attitudes against Roma in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And these are staggering. As an example, in 2020, I led a team of experts at the OSCE who designed and conducted a research into awareness, experiences, and attitudes related to discrimination in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The research consisted of a poll of a representative sample of the country's population. This means that the results of the research translate with a very low margin of error into what the overall population believes. And some of the results are simply astounding. First, 8 out of 10 people found discrimination against Roma to be widespread, showing that awareness of discrimination is present. However, at the same time, those same respondents expressed strong discriminatory attitudes and stereotypes against Roma. 6 out of 10 said they do not have friends who are Roma. 4 out of 10 agreed with the statement, I have nothing against Roma, but they're more likely to be thieves. 1/2 of respondents said that most Roma live on social welfare and do not want to work. 1/2 also said that they would not hire Roma if they had their own business. 4 out of 10 said that Roma employed in service activities such as trade and catering would repel customers, etc. Now, how do we overcome this dire situation? I strongly believe that we need to simultaneously work on both the legal framework and education and awareness raising in the country. The photo exhibition and the book produced by PCRC, the Post-Conflict Research Center, and OSCE is a good start because it provides a way for these 6 out of 10 people who do not know any Roma to learn more about this ethnic minority and human rights issues it is facing. I hope to see this book and this exhibition disseminated in schools, and I hope through education we can overcome many of these stereotypes. Finally, let me conclude with one word which is, in my view, crucial, and that word is urgency. We in the Balkans simply do not have time for incremental steps. It is tempting to compare the issues Roma face today with history. 1860s were obviously quite bad. 1920s were also bad, but maybe a little less bad. 1960s were again better than 1920s. 2021 is better than 1960s. And in 2080, people will probably look at 2020 as backward and far from satisfactory. And they will probably be right. Often it takes decades to achieve, but also to notice progress. But in the Balkans, we do not have 60 years to make one step. We need warp speed. And for that to happen, the entire society needs to invest significant effort to make this change, urgently. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miloš. And you've really, brought home the message of needing to make more changes more quickly, and that's something that we'll also talk about in the discussion. I want to switch to Mirko Pincelli, who is our final panelist today. He is an award-winning feature and documentary director. Most recently, he's focused on feature-length, character-driven documentaries, including having shot and directed an extensive number of films for the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, the United Nations, the International Red Cross, across Cambodia, the Philippines, Indonesia, and the Balkans. His first feature-length documentary was in 2011 with PCRC, Uspomene 677, based on an early photojournalist assignment in Bosnia, and has since been distributed worldwide by Al Jazeera and in 9 other countries. And in 2014, he directed and shot the series Ordinary Heroes, also produced by PCRC, winning first prize for the United Nations Intercultural Award. Mirko, I'd like to turn things over to you.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you everybody for the opportunity to speak about such an important issue, especially in today's marking day for the Roma community. I don't personally hold the experience and the academic experience as Velma, Dalibor, and Miloš do, so I will speak much more through what I experience when I'm on the field and when I try to document making a film or a photographic assignment. I went the first time to Bosnia over 15 years ago now, and I will forever be grateful to Velma to have introduced me such a close country to my own country, because I'm from Italy. Bosnia is just on the other side of the Adriatic, but it's always been kept in the shade for us. And I made more than one film in Bosnia, and every time I have the opportunity to be there, I just discovered that in every single corner you're looking to, and to whoever you're talking to, you will discover a story that deserves not just to be listened, but to be made in a film and to be brought to an audience, which in the time being that we are going through, I feel is very much asleep and very much caring about the topic as we are talking today. So I grew up in Italy. I went to elementary school, high school, then university in the UK. And for one reason or another, I had Roma people around me for all my life. So I had friends sitting next to me in my classroom, which they were Roma, and we had very good relationship. And I mentioned this because of the stereotype issue that there is, which in my opinion is not just happening in Bosnia, but it's happening all around the world. Not just the friends would call a Roma person gypsy, but sometimes even the teacher would refer to them with a smile as gypsy. So to me, you know, now that we are talking about this makes me think how the stereotypes which we've been using, I think, and I don't want to say just for decades, but for centuries against this community of people and every single neglected community around the world, they become part of our vocabulary, they become part of our behavior, up to a point that a teacher can refer to a student with that term, and the student would actually have a smile back because he feels in a corner, he feels watched by everybody, and he starts to think probably even that using such a derogatory term is correct. So this to say that Bosnia, as has been mentioned, is a country that holds 3 ethnicity and 3 religion. We spoke to internationally, on an international level, about the roles of each community during the war, for example. Very little is being discussed and addressed and recognized of the role of Roma people during the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And this is how I connected to the Roma community for the first time in Bosnia, because of very strong personal desire when we were shooting with Velma, our very first film, Uspomene 677, to go, perhaps, I think, I remember if I'm correct, Velma, correct me if I'm wrong, to go on a day off to see how the Roma community would live in different communities around the country. And the clip that I intend to show today, just to give an insight of how in one of the biggest villages in Bosnia, how the Roma community deal and has to live and how it's considered, it opened up to me a whole set of ideas and opportunities, because being honest today, and especially even now during this pandemic time, the impact that films and medias have is beyond our own expectation. People are sitting at home, people are having more and more time to watch, and they're being fed with a huge amount of entertainment, let's say, when I think there is an urgency to not just recognize minorities, but to have the humble feeling of recognizing that those communities, they hold much more positive impact in our own independent communities than we think. Because often, and most of the time, they do not just the job that the wider spread community doesn't like to do, but they hold the knowledge and they have the skills and they have the creativity and they have an all out set of skills that they could become something, as we all can become, but because of the conditions they're kept in, they stay in the margins. And they only have opportunities when activists, journalists, peacemakers, they go and pick up these topics and they bring it and they show it to the entire community around the world. So the clip we will show is of course a dark clip, is a very sad clip that shows how tough life can be. But if we try to read in between the lines, I think that does much more than that, because we've been focused and we've been following a very young boy, which I believe could have an incredibly life ahead if the opportunity and the skills that he has would be recognized. And I believe that this kind of issue is applying to the majority of people that they live in these conditions. And even the most, I think, sad, at least for me, element around neglected communities and communities kept in the margins is that often they have no other choice that choose things to survive. And when you struggle, and I'm now thinking of my last experience I had on another film in Pakistan and in India, still and focused on minorities and communities. When you struggle to live, when you struggle to feed your own kids, and you struggle to, honestly, to go through those 24 hours a day that you have, there is no any limits to what you can do, because we're talking about your own life and the life of your own family, of your own people. So I think the responsibility is much more on us than anybody else. I like to deconstruct this idea that always politicians are responsible for doing very little and listen very little and trying to be active, because none of us is actively a politician holding a chair nowhere, not just in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but in no other country. But how come we have the intention to do something, and how come we have the intention to spend time, effort, often money, to make project that we think is worth to be shown and to be listened to, enter the educational circuit and even the widest broadcasting circuit? Because only through this kind of medium, starting from books, starting from exhibition and ending to film, I believe you can have a positive impact and you can awake and bring topics in front of the face of the majority of people. If we can watch the trailer, then I'll add something else to that. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to hit play. So if someone can just tell me if there's any issue hearing it or seeing it.
Thank you, Laura.
Ho sempre cercato una madre e un padre, un fratello, un amico, non ce l'avevo.
Ja sam bila oteta 91. Ja sam radila kao čistačica u Orientu hotelu. Imala sam 23 godine kad su oni mene napravili nasilno da budem kao bijelo rublje.
Zdravo, ja sam Hida Pavla Ahmetović. Imam 18 godina, tako i gdje živim. Gdje kuhamo, gdje je kuhinja. Ovo je krevet moje mame, Testa Ahmetović mu rade.
Ja sam došla u Italiju od prvog dana kad su me metli kao da budem prostitutka. Ja sam bliskala, ja sam plakala, oni su mene vezali u noge, u ruke.
Lire, 100.000 lire, facevo di tutto, per la droga, per avere soldi, per mangiare, per dormire, e qualche volta quando non ce l'avevo dormivo in mezzo alla strada e mi coprivo con un pezzo di cartone. Mio padre una volta mi ha visto e mi ha sputato addosso.
Oni su mene maltretirali, silovali me, nasilno sam dijete dobila.
krađom, drogom, svim tim lošim stvarima.
To je zlato djeta. Što se tiče te familije Ahmetović, to je jedino dijete. S kim možeš i pričati, i čisto, i uredno, i sve.
A najbitnije je što on ima neki cilj u životu.
Ja sam mi rekao, ja bih želio, to je jedan put mi rekao kad se naljuti, ja bih želio da vidim kako mi je sa otcom, kak je taj otac. Kad bi vidio da je loš prema meni, ja bi ga ubio. Ja sam rekao, jesi ti sine lud, njemu njegov obraz, tebi tvoj.
Postoji prilika da i ove druge djevojčice koje sad odrastaju, da ih snađe ista situacija kao što je snašla Moraviju.
I da sazna kakav je čovjek bio. Po maminim riječima bio je super čovjek i to jest dobre duše.
Thank you, Laura.
You're very welcome. It's really, it's incredibly powerful. And I watched the clip a day or so ago. And again, I was just really overwhelmed. And I guess the first question that I wanted to ask each of you is, on a personal note, what does it mean to do this work? What does it mean to talk about people, and in Dalibor, in your case, to be a Roma person, in an environment where you're largely invisible? And I say this because, Velma, some of the most powerful experiences I had in Bosnia early on was going from Sarajevo into the countryside, where the resistance is fierce and education is one person at a time. And often you're seen, even though you don't want to be seen. So Dalibor, I wanted to first open this up to you.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I would like to say that in origin, I'm come from Serbia, you know, and I'm live here almost 12 years, you know, and I live in mixed marriage. I'm Roma and my wife, she is a Bosnian, but it's not matter for us. So what I realized a couple years ago, I'm almost 40 and I don't know, I realized something. I don't know, after 5 decades, the Roma movement, not just in Bosnia, it's more mature, I believe, and most larger and most organized. But despite this, Roma in most countries all around the world still do not have basic human rights. And everybody asks why. Everybody asks why. So I believe because I think this is a political struggle. Because every peaceful political struggle is long and exhausting. Because the Roma have been fighting for their rights 50 years. Without violence, without revolution, just peaceful. So we all know that the fight will continue. So I don't know, despite the Cold War, despite the collapse of the former communist states, despite the collapse of ex-Yugoslavia, despite some problems in European Union, the Roma still survive in their struggle. And today, no one should be, how to say, discouraged if it seems that the fight, even after 50 years, it seems like it's just beginning. Political battles are always at the beginning. And I'm so happy, I was mentioned already, I'm happy and very proud that there is a new generation of young people, and because they have some new perspective. They want to change paradigm in Bosnia, especially. I'm talking about Bosnia and Herzegovina and Balkan, but they want to change because they know now. They don't want just their rights. They know how to change and how to make something new, and how to say. This generation is very familiar and remind me on something that happened in Roma movement 50 years ago, because how to say, fathers of Roma nation starting something 50 years ago, but today people with I cooperate through my portal and through Axiom. It's very brave, and there know what is okay, what is not okay, but they know how to change this paradigm and how to make something not just for them, not just for them family, for all Roma community, and not just for Roma community, for all society in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And what is important in all these things? This is not just our fight, our struggle. It's a struggle for all people in Bosnia and Herzegovina, for, I don't know, for university professors, for I don't know, for politicians, political parties, and etc. But other important thing is chance and opportunity. Give me chance to prove that I'm a good doctor, that I'm a good journalist, that I'm a good lawyer, etc. And on that way, I will be show you that I can be equal. Like other in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I believe that we find a way how to become equal, and of course it's education, first of all, education, and conferences like this, and people like Mirko, who make documentary movies and take pictures, and Velma, who will, I believe that there is an idea for some next projects, but this is important because this is struggle for all of us, and there is not Roma problems. There is a problems which our governments are not fixed for Roma community in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Velma, I wanted to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dalibor. I mean, this project really, this project really was, I would say, the closest project to my heart, honestly, because I mentioned how it was just a small idea for a small photo project, but we realized that we really need to shift the funding we have from our core donors and invest more and raise awareness. The OSCE BIH office and Miloš personally, they have been really, really like incredible support. I mean, for me, yeah, every single project, initiative, activity we do, Laura, you know that we now exist almost 10 years and we do plenty of different work, have a certain specific spot, because what we are looking is mostly how we can present unrepresented voices. We do have another project, Balkan Discourse, featuring just youth as a platform for youth voices and young people, that they can be heard and express their opinion. And I would say that through years of working and collaborating with people like Mirko and a bunch of photographers, we did gain a knowledge how to curate content. In this case was photography, but we do a lot of with our documentaries. Mirko mentioned how we were filming Ordinary Heroes, which is our also large multimedia educational project existing now for 10 years and constantly being developed and redeveloped. So what I would like to say, especially to Dalibor, and I do know that we had such a beautiful feedback from Roma community and communities all around Bosnia and regionally who were really looking the way to help us and spread the word and do, in this case, outreach, which Dalibor created without, you know, even us, we didn't approach him. We just saw a project. That is how we met. And for me, that is showing that the quality of work we are doing and the passion which all PCRC team is putting in is not just me. It's a bunch of like people in our team and volunteers and also colleagues and academics and supporters from all around the world who were putting a lot of effort through all these years to help us to, you know, keep going. People like you and Tanya and my university, Columbia. It's really giving us hope that work we do and the time we are investing and resources we are investing are not for nothing and that they will have a larger purpose. And yeah, the final goal would be to put this educational material in the classrooms and educate young people and change the perspective and try to help Roma community because they really, really deserve a chance. They don't need our charity. They just need to be, you know, equally taken in this society. And we heard from Miloš and Dalibor about all these obstacles. That is why I didn't want to like speak too much, but the condition of Roma women, employment related to Roma women, the healthcare system, and all this is like really, really large problem. So I'm really grateful that we had opportunity and a platform to speak about this.
Mirko, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it's like to go into these communities and not only talk with them, but photograph them and film them. Because so much of the time in Bosnia, especially, you know, and most of my research has been in Srebrenica, and Dalibor, you mentioned being visible 2 days a year, plus during elections. In Srebrenica, a similar thing happens, and being an international going in with a camera can often be seen as exploitive.
Completely, and it's a very good question, Laura, and I think, you know, with full honesty, is a similar question I give very often to my students in London, which is you have to be as humble as you can, and you need to be fully aware that you alone, you will never be able to enter any of these communities. So we are not superheroes simply because we hold the camera and we travel around the world and you decide to penetrate any community and suddenly bring the story to a worldwide audience. It doesn't work like that. It works, first of all, by building a very strong trust between somebody who can allow you to be there and speak to these people, first of all, which in my case has always been Velma in Bosnia. Second is about having to be as convincing as you can. And I think it starts on the first step within yourself, to show joy, to show that you feel enriched by being there with whoever you have in front of you in any condition that maybe a lot of people cannot even imagine. So you chose yourself to make the story. The moment you step in their houses, in their garden, in their villages, in their town, you need to feel honored to be there from the beginning till the end. And I think this is, you know, this is something that is very little understood by a lot of filmmakers. Maybe because it's becoming always more easy to make film and take photograph. That's definitely one step. Another issue is because the level and the level of experience you need to have to make something and to bring something to an audience, again, has dropped. So there is this attitude which I very much dislike lately, to think that is about just the person who goes enter the house and point the camera in front of a subject or a character. It is not like this. It's about building a family, it's about keeping connection, it's about spending so much time to make sure that the relationship are alive through the time. Because again, I make one film after another. At the end of every film, I have tons of people trying to keep that relationship alive, and sometimes it's not possible because we are humans. So again, I think, you know, to get to the core of it, I think you need to be very humble. You need to make them feel aware that you're not just comfortable, but you respect them because they've chosen you and the team that is there with you to open up and tell you the story, which is probably a story which they've tried to forget and to repress and to delete for many years. So again, there is a whole set of emotions that you need to take in account before you even pull out your camera out of your bag. And when I looked at the trailer again, and I was wondering, on one side, about the condition that this family are living, as many other, which are the margins. Why are these people in the margins? These people are in the margins because we put them in the margins and we keep them in the margins. These people are not happy to stay in the margins and live like that. I think this is something that is so well used by, in this case, politicians to point the spotlight on them. They suffer to live like this. They suffer to have not a life as we all have. So I think this is, on one point, extremely important. Going back to the title, is we decided to call it soul because, again, they have to sell part of their own life to fit and to survive in any community they find themselves. They suffer in Bosnia. I can guarantee you they suffer as much in Italy, in France, in the UK, if not worse. So it's the whole world that need to change perspective against minorities. This is my opinion, and why I do it is because it make me feel that I'm contributing to something I believe in a very small way, but I believe that all of us do, and it's the only way. Thank you.
I'm just struck by how, on one level, the work speaks to global themes about human rights and acceptance and breaking down stereotypes and fighting against discrimination, and yet at the same time, things we're talking in this case about Bosnia, but it's very, very localized. And what do I mean by that? There's a question that's come up about, do Roma communities in Bosnia and elsewhere, are they networked in together? And, after, just to take a step back for a moment, after the Holocaust, Jewish survivors come and there's Jewish people that live around the world, and there's a strong network of visibility that people can connect to. And even if you're in a particular country where you're struggling, there is some sort of identification. And Miloš, I wanted to ask you, the power of exclusion being so high at a time when authoritarianism and identity politics is raging against a culture of people who are, and not just Roma people, but around the world, who want to foster integration and look at things from a human rights perspective. I'd love to, ask you, what do you think?
Thank you. I think Dalibor said it really well. I think that the human rights struggle is a struggle for the entire society, and there are no human rights Roma human rights issues. There's human rights issues, and by defending and amplifying voices of minorities, you're actually amplifying the voices of all. And all of us are a minority. You mentioned identity. We all have more than one identity, and at least some of those we are all minority. So by fighting for human rights for minorities, you're also fighting for yourself, and you're fighting for society around you. Yes, times today are not perfect for human rights. I think we can all acknowledge that. The situation today is not the situation we had 20 years ago or 30 years ago. There's an increase in identity politics and authoritarian politics and divisive rhetoric globally, and including in the Balkans, unfortunately. But I do believe, and also going back to what Dalibor said, that there is a new generation of human rights activists who are, in my view, much better than the old one. The old generation of human rights activists and minority leaders sometimes seem to care much more about themselves than the communities they were representing. And the new ones are the ones who are keeping the movement alive. And one thing that I said was that obviously urgency is important, but I also believe strongly that Roma demanding their rights for themselves and the rest amplifying those voices is the proper way to go about this, rather than others, who are non-Roma, telling everybody what the human rights struggle should be about.
And to build on that, and I want to ask this question, Velma, because you've mentioned doing all of the work with different communities. Is there a benefit to talking about Roma human rights, talking about the human rights of different populations as you're doing the work versus doing discrete projects that focus on individual communities?
Yeah, I mean, we did, Mirko mentioned the film, the trailer we saw, I think started to film 10 years ago, probably while we were doing other work, let's say for Ordinary Heroes or Uspomene. And, we always had a curiosity of trying to see how the diverse communities in Bosnia are living and look for new stories and potentially something what can be presented as a part of our work. Through these individual examples, which we are featuring in our book On the Margins, photo book and exhibition, but also we had like social media campaign and a couple of reports being combined from. We are showing individual cases. Yes, we are showing individual people, but I mean the whole concept is developed that is really speaking, as Mirko mentioned, about the problems of Roma communities all around Europe. I have to mention that, for example, Italian embassy in Bosnia, Italian ambassador was really like impressed with the exhibition, and COVID happened, but he was suggesting to take the same exhibition to Italy because he could like definitely see that this is potential to create the platform over there to speak about the Roma problems. So there is, I would say it's beneficial both, Lori, honestly. It's beneficial also to go to communities and speak with majority, but also if you, as Mirko mentioned, have possibility to go much more deeper and create this unique connection, which you need to have, that people feel comfortable, that they feel comfortable to share the part of their life, the part of their like personal life, to let you into your home, into your heart. And you are always carrying responsibility how these material will be presented, and you are always carrying a certain fear that maybe, not because you want to, but in some way that you can harm those who are subjects of your work. So it's definitely, for me, I would say was a deep privilege to be accepted. And, I'm very grateful to all Roma people and communities who did let us in, but also Roma representatives of certain communities who would speak to us and try to understand what we are doing and really participate before they saw the final product. I'm always saying how it's really difficult to curate certain content related to art because you don't know how it will look like at the end. And that is why it's always challenging to explain what you want to accomplish. But I think that, through work we are doing 3 years, I would say now 10 years, we have been justifying the trust, first of all, we got from many different categories and people, not just Roma community in this case, but also genocide survivors, survivors of rape and sexual violence. And it's been honestly a deep privilege and responsibility to do this work. But when I see this conference and when I see, how it can be meaningful and important, then I do know that what we did was quite important, and I'm grateful for, support with Roma communities and these, especially like individuals who share their 20 stories for our exhibition gave us.
Thank you. I really want to, I just appreciate all of you coming together today. Dalibor and Mirko, Velma and Miloš, thank you so much. Thank you to Tanja at the Harriman Institute, the Roma People's Project. We're really grateful to come together and talk about these issues and really spotlight this, especially on International Roma Day. So we're going to close out this panel. Thank you so much. The next panel will begin in a half hour at 12:45. The discussion will be about what is going on in Europe and the Balkans. It will be moderated by our colleague, Tanja Domi. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe, be well. Thank you.